If you are in the mood to get a laugh today, you should check out these dumb criminals trying to get away from their wrongdoings. I mean, how dumb one has to be. Let's get started, shall we? Number 1. The buggy chase. This first one's a pretty uncommon case. We hear about high-speed chases now and then, but this one is just the opposite. The criminal chose a horse buggy to run away from the hands of the law. You heard that right, a horse buggy. An Ohio police officer sees a horse buggy coming on the wrong side of the road. He pulls up his flashlight to confirm if his eyes are deceiving him, then asks the buggy to stop on the side of the road. When the buggy wouldn't stop, the officer approached it and attempted to pull the horse's reins to halt it. But the buggy just wouldn't stop and continued to move forward. Curious, the officer took a closer look and saw an Amish man inside, completely intoxicated and slumped over on the seat. It looked like the horse was leading the buggy on its own, likely trying to take the man back home. Imagine that with a car now. The cop shared the funny story with his partner, and they both had a good laugh. Then he went in his police car to stop the horse in a slow chase. They caught up to it and tried to block its path, but the stubborn horse refused to stop. Eventually, during a turn, the buggy accidentally bumped into the police car. Luckily, neither the horse nor the car got damaged, but the Amish guy inside woke up with a bump on his head from the little crash. The officers helped him out of the buggy and slapped some cuffs on him for further questioning. This could have seriously ended in a disaster, but there's more like this to come. Number 2. The dumb stalker. In all the strange stalking cases, you won't find someone as dumb as this guy who believed stalking was a relationship thing. The girl was friends with this guy and they drifted apart. But that did not sit well with Ramesh. He started harassing her with emails and texts, so much so that she had to cut him off. The hatchet was buried when he popped up again to apologize to the girl for his behavior. Fast forward to this day when the woman found out about the GPS tracker on her car. Ramesh put the tracker on September 1st, and the investigation popped open on September 7th. She didn't even know that she was being tracked for a whole week. The woman called the police on him, and this is what he had to say.
That's all I did. I didn't do anything else. I never had any criminal history.
Every time this guy opens his mouth, it's like handing the cops more evidence on a silver platter. Tough luck, buddy. Apologies won't cut it when you're facing stalking charges. It does not get any better. He goes on to admit that he put a tracker on her because he was upset. The sheer entitlement this guy thinks he has over the girl is outrageous. Jude keeps going on about how it's his first offense, but sorry, pal, the law doesn't give you a free pass just because it's your first screw-up. It did not end as well as he had hoped. He was arrested on the spot by the cops because the female pressed charges on him. His criminal record will be the only relationship he will have with this lady now. Number 3. Thieves' failed attempt at robbing an ATM. Here we have this robber who looks pretty calm, but maybe he was too calm for a robbery because he didn't think things through from here on. This thief pops out of the car to attach a steel chain to the ATM. He looks up at the camera and throws a heavy brick and another tool at the glass door. He probably started to panic about getting caught because his next moves were kinda rushed. Once inside, he tries to attach the chain to the ATM, but oops, it snaps in the middle. He's so focused on the machine that he doesn't even notice the chain breaking. The funny thing is that he picked up his tool inches away from where the chain broke and still didn't see the broken chain. And if you notice, he dragged the chain all the way into the back of the store. Did he expect to take the whole store along with him as he drove away? Thinking he's pulled off the heist, he drives off, but soon realizes his mistake and comes back to fix it. Turns out, the weight of the ATM wasn't behind his car. So he stopped on the road to try again and picked up the chain, only to realize that he had parked too far from the store. After staring at the chain for a bit, he gives up and drives away. This robber gave up But the next thief saw an opportunity and grabbed it. Number 4. Funny attempt at an escape. Quantrell D. Schwartzlow, the guy arrested for suspicion of sexual assault, found himself in a closed room after the cops arrested him. After arrest, he's taken inside the room, and the cop goes away without detaining him from the table. And in a matter of seconds, Schwartzlow's eyes start scanning for an exit strategy. Lo and behold, he spots an open window. Talk about an escape plan being gift-wrapped for him, huh? Without skipping a beat, he pulls up the blinds, sees his chance to run, and boom, he jumps out. Reports say that it was a 12 to 16 feet jump to the ground. You can see him running away as fast as his legs could take him. When the cop strolls back in, you can bet he wasn't thrilled. The officers found Schwartzlow 4 hours after his attempted escape. Not exactly the smoothest getaway. Now he's facing charges of second-degree sexual assault, strangulation, and battery. Talk about being dumb enough to add another charge on yourself. Number 5. Drunk woman. Tries to act smart with the cop. Up next, we have Miss Tipsy, who was pretty drunk, but decided that she wanted to act smart in front of the officers. As you can guess, it didn't end up looking good for her. On August 20th, 2023, a police officer was called to a neighborhood about a traffic accident. When he arrived at the scene, he discovered a car flipped onto its side, which is pretty unusual for a residential area or any area at all. He questioned the person who called and found that, thankfully, no one was injured. But he also found some surprising information. The parked car was in between the 2 trees. When another vehicle approached at high speed, it collided with the parked car, causing it to flip over 20 feet away onto its side in the middle of the road. Miraculously, everyone walked away without a scratch, especially the driver. Turns out the driver responsible was a bit intoxicated, driving way too fast for a residential area. Despite the whole flipping over thing, she somehow came out without a scratch. Since there was nobody inside the toppled car, the cop decided to have a chat with the tipsy driver to figure out what exactly went down. The driver clearly realizes she's in a mess. But instead of owning up, she starts getting all sassy with the cop, refusing to answer questions without an attitude, acting like the cop's the dumb one in the situation. She's even making it seem like the whole thing's crystal clear, and the cop's just slow on the uptake. But a few moments later, the tables turned on her. Just a few moments later, things take a different turn. See, it's pretty obvious to the cop that this is a drunk driving scenario, but that's the part the girl doesn't want to admit or accept, and instead tries to dance around this fact. Now, she has taken a shift in her demands and came up with another way of dodging the questions. This time, it was her refusing to answer any questions whatsoever unless an attorney was present. When the cops asked her to consent to sobriety field tests, she refused to cooperate. Because of this, the police officers arrested her right then and there. Now the thing is, firstly, she was the one who refused sobriety tests, and the smell of alcohol on her breath was another evidence the officer had. But she was just on some high, trying to teach a cop how to do her job. The female cop even offered her a chance to avoid jail time if she cooperated. But it seems Rachel wasn't interested in taking that opportunity, which is why she ended up behind bars. The charges against her were failure to maintain control, unsafe lane deviation, and not having proof of insurance. But this next case is not so bright either. Number 6. Old woman questions a service dog. We've got an elderly lady causing a scene in the supermarket because she's got a bone to pick with a service dog. That's not a very cool grandma. A disabled man was accompanied by a service dog in the mart because, he needs it. Now, according to federal law, our man with the furry companion is well within his rights. But that doesn't stop Granny from causing a scene. She walks over, all fired up, and starts interrogating the poor guy about the legitimacy of his dog's service status. Spoiler alert, she's not an employee, just a nosy Nancy with a bone to pick. The man tries to defuse the situation with some polite explanations, but Granny's not having it. Oh no, she decides to take matters into her own hands, literally. Before you know it, she's aiming a kick at the poor guy's tailbone. Thankfully, someone calls the cops to sort out the mess. Maybe Granny needs a lesson in manners, or maybe just a timeout in aisle 9. The older woman had already made her way to her car, clearly with another dumb move planned on her to-do list. So the cops headed straight to the parking lot to get a hold of her. And here is how that conversation went.
At least my day is it.
Actually, no, you ruined my day because we've been so busy and now I gotta deal with you. Yeah.
Our Granny on the go is clearly on a roll, making one questionable decision after another. She's giving the officers some serious sass, trying to talk her way out of trouble. But let's face it, her excuses are about as convincing as a cat trying to pass as a dog. The next case is not one criminal, but a group of them acting like idiots. Number 7, idiot criminals get caught in a burglary. Now, I'm not saying you should go out breaking into people's houses, but it does sound like it needs some serious brain power, but sometimes it's just about using your common sense. Unfortunately, this group of boys missed the memo on that. This group came in to break the house, but was caught due to the CCTV footage recording the entrance of the house. The first thing any thief checks is a camera that can catch them, but these bright minds didn't notice the big camera at the face of the door. They thought that the rags covering their faces would be enough, which clearly wasn't. Next, they spent an awful amount of time trying to break into a pretty average door. You can see how all of them tried to take the screwdriver one by one in an attempt to break apart the door, but none of them could figure it out. They even tried pretending that they were passers-by when other people passed by the door, as if nobody's going to notice the bunch of dudes with rags on their faces acting suspiciously. Finally, after what feels like forever, they manage to crack the door open. But surprise, surprise, they get caught not long after. Talk about a rookie mistake. And that's just the beginning of epic fails by the dumbest criminals. Number 8, burglar hits his own partner. This next hilarious video shows these two thieves trying to break into a house, but failing miserably. The Shanghai Public Security Bureau got wind of it and couldn't help but chuckle, thanking the would-be burglars for unknowingly assisting the cops out with their jobs. In the dead of night, these two burglars show up at a house armed with bricks and a plan to break in. But things don't quite go according to plan. The first brick missed the house's entrance, so the other burglar tried to make an attempt on the door with his brick, but his partner in crime came in between and got hit by the same brick. There's a moment of awkward silence as they both process what just happened. Then, realizing their blunder, the one who threw the brick helps his buddy up, and they go back empty-handed, nursing a sore spot or two. Definitely not a good day for them. Number 9. A dumb predator gets interrogated. This next case is a very strange interrogation of 31-year-old Calvin Greer. Let's check it out. Chris Hansen from Catch, a predator, got a hold of a criminal whose investigation is not the brightest of conversations on the internet. Now, Sammy's got a pretty disturbing hobby. He likes to chat with young kids on the internet and then try to meet up with them, sometimes even inviting them over to spend the night. Creepy, right? Well, this caught the attention of Hansen, who decided to put a stop to Sammy's antics. Hansen sets up a sting operation, luring Sammy to a house under the pretense of meeting a young girl. Hansen enters the dining room instead of the young girl, but Greer remains unbothered. When asked why he was meeting a young girl at a house à la first, he tells the officer that he thought he was meeting up with a friend who was 18 or older, but he knew he was caught red-handed and then changed his tactics. Hansen interrogates him further on his life to get an idea of what would make him go after a teenager. Turns out, despite being married, He arranges meetings with young kids, but his answers do not give Hansen any sort of indication of a smart heist. Instead, Greer openly admits and acts dumbly in all of the questions, thinking that it would get him away from this investigation. I mean, if you called a young girl, texted inappropriately, and asked her to meet him alone, acting dumb won't prove your innocence if you are still involved in a crime. Since Hansen has no authority to make arrests, he allows him to leave, to which he thanks him. But he does not know that a group of police officers are waiting outside to detain him and take him to jail for his shameful act. He was imprisoned for 2 years. The next case is another interrogation that goes on with a stupid criminal. Number 10. Criminal acts dumb in investigation. Deshaun Hill Jr., just 15 years old, was going about his day like any other teenager when tragedy struck. He left school early, probably thinking about typical teenage stuff, when he crossed paths with Cody Forencam, a criminal with a grudge. Deshaun accidentally bumped into Cody, probably without even realizing it, but that set Cody off. See, Cody was already having a rough day after getting robbed at a store, and he decided to take out his frustration on Deshaun. Without any warning, Cody pulled out his handgun and fired at Deshaun, hitting him 3 to 4 times. It happened so fast, and Deshaun didn't stand a chance. He lost his life right there on the spot, a victim of senseless violence. The cops conducted an investigation on Forencam, but the whole conversation was just about Forencam acting stupidly in front of the cops. It's clear that Forencam is playing the role of the clueless suspect during the police interrogation. You can see him confidently sticking to his story, despite overwhelming evidence placing him at the scene of the crime where Hill was shot. He even tries to deflect by bringing up his mother and girlfriend, attempting to play the police brutality card. But the cops aren't buying it. They calmly explain to him that they had a respectful conversation with his mother, but Forencam refuses to budge from his version of events. But here is when he acts even more stupidly. The camera footage from multiple sites and various witnesses mark him at the site of the criminal activity. Plus, a lot of people even saw him interacting with Hills. But Forencam chooses to call himself homeless. He says that he was not even in the region at that time. He was going to Wisconsin and even had tickets to the theater. How dumb would you have to be to say that in front of the cops interrogating you for murder? But he does not stop there. When that plan does not work, he tries another lie and claims that he was with his brother. That lie eventually trapped him. He later explained the robbery scene of how he got mugged and said that he was looking for the man who robbed him, ultimately proving that he was in fact at the location where the incident occurred. This case is probably why the right to remain silent is a right of the citizen. Otherwise, you can see how a criminal keeps digging himself a hole by answering questions dumbly. Number 11. Robber locks the door behind him. This robber had a clever idea, using the air vents to sneak into the store. He slipped through the trapdoor and got inside without a hitch. But what he didn't realize was that very soon, things would take a turn for the worse, because the owner had been dealing with robberies and was ready this time. As soon as he lets himself inside the door, he forgets to check if it would close behind. And it did, trapping him in the corridor. Not the best start, and it only gets worse from here. His first attempt involved trying to break down the door with his body. Then, in a panic, he fumbled around for a light switch, finally managing to light up the corridor. Next, he resorted to using a hammer on the door, but it was useless as both the door and the hammer were made of steel. He desperately tried to force his way out through another door, which he thought was the exit. After several failed attempts, he finally broke it open, only to find himself in another room with no way out. Talk about being stuck in a maze. The robber spends the next few minutes desperately searching for a way out, but eventually gives in and takes a drink from the faucet. He then waits patiently and cooperatively as the cops arrive, open the door, and arrest him. He finally found a way out, but at what cost? That's all on the dumbest criminals caught on camera. Let us know which one was your favorite in the comments. If you liked the video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.